Hello everybody and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JmonsterTW, and today I've got a 3 versus 3 game for you on Silmarillion Total War. We're going to be playing on the WARTORN Plains map, and it's a very intense game, certainly from my perspective. I think you guys are really going to get a kick out of it. So without any further ado, let's jump into the replay itself. Hope you guys enjoy. And so, let's quickly go through the army compositions. Again, I would like to warn you that this was a game that was also done on my latest Silmarillion stream. So if you have caught that stream, then the outcome of this battle will be no surprise to you. But in any case, let's take a look at my army comps, and then we'll look at the comps of the other team. I'm going to be playing as Doriath this time around. I've got 2 Axemen of the Girdle, and I've got a bunch of Spear Hosts of the Girdle, Sword Host in the center, and the reason that I do this is because I'm playing against the Plothrim. Now, I'll go into their comp in detail, but I want to let you know little notes here about deployment, because it will help you in your games. So, my center line here is composed of 3 units of Sword Hosts. Sword Hosts are higher melee defense, and they have better shield value than the Axemen. And the reason that they are in the center here is because I fully expect that they will be fighting against the Arankir Lim, and of course the Nobles of Balar. And their purpose is not to win that fight. Their purpose is to hold, and that's why there's also Spear Host of the Girdle in reserve, and I've got a I've got a detachment here with my general in it as well. These are all holding units in my center. Whereas my wings are going to be stacked with some nasty stuff. So I've got Rangers of the Girdle, I've got Axguard, I've got Donathem and Blong, I've got Warriors of Region, and a second company here of Axguard, as well as Axemen of the Girdle. So I'm going to hold in my center as best I'm able to, and try and crush them on the wings, so that even if they manage to break through my center, which they probably will eventually, I will be able to surround them on 2 sides with my victorious wings, assuming everything goes to plan, and yeah, win the game that way. So there's a reason why I've got these units and why they're kind of deployed, arrayed, I suppose, in the order of battle that they are. Over here, I've got another Spear Host detachment. They're going to be on my left wing. I've got a full company here of Spear Host as well. More Axemen. I've got Rangers, Axguard, and Warriors of Region. So less troops on this side. Mostly I've kind of stacked things on my left. It's sort of like an oblique formation, but instead of just one wing having lots of troops that can be very deadly and overwhelm the opponent, I've actually stacked both of my wings at the same time. So we're going to hold him in the center and then envelop him on the wings. Let's move on now to my ally. We have the Nargothrond army commanded by Artorias. Now, he's brought Wardens of Nargothrond. He's actually got 3 units here of the Bridge Wards of Nargothrond, so he's really doubled down on his pikemen. He's got Sartor Findorato, Arquini Morna Gilwa, and some more Wardens of Nargothrond here. So it's a very small but very elite Nargothrond army. He's also got Defenders of Talath Dirnan, I think 1 company of them there, maybe 2. It seems like there's a lot of them. There's some more hidden units in the woods here. He's got Marksmen of Nargothrond, and I think he's got another company of Defenders of Talath Dirnan. So it's a very small army, but the pikes are what really make it scary. Popping on over here, we've got the Realm of Angband being commanded by Revan of Korriban. And I definitely gave Revan a hard time on stream because of some stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later here in the battle, but I would like to preface this by saying that he does exactly what he's supposed to do in this battle, and I was absolutely incorrect. It was just a quick assessment that didn't really kind of capture the nuances that Revan was facing on his end. So he's got Ironshod Ravagers here, which are the 2-handed Axemen. He's got a couple companies of them in there, I believe. He's also got Guardians of the Iron Crown, some Macemen here from the Pits of Angband. He's got Halberdiers, because of course. Some Reavers here, so these are the Axemen. There are these... Oop, there we go here. These guys are without their armor upgrade. He's got more Reavers. Bulldogs of Angband, which are a scary-ass looking model here done by Castellan of Angmar. That's actually going to be where his general is hanging out today. He's got Guardians of the Iron Crown, more Halberdiers, more Ironshod Halberdiers, Spear Guard of the Iron Crown. You can see them there. Very scary looking unit. Mostly the product of the work of the Coward Coma. He's got more Reavers, Arbalists, 2 companies of the Arbalists, I believe. And this is mostly a numbers heavy build. So there's no Troll Guard, there's no Uruloki, there's no cavalry and things like that. This is a purely infantry focused numbers build. And so, facing him down, sort of, we're going to see the army of Assyrian, but they're actually engaged and switching over to the other side. So they're going to try and overwhelm one of the wings, specifically my wing, and try and break our armies that way. But this army is being played by Knights of Turin Melkon. He's got Spearhost of Radloriel, bunch of Spearhost of Gelion. It's kind of hard to see them all since they're all so bunched up like this, but he's also got some Urfin and Tower, 2 units of. He's got 2 to 3 units of the Scouts of Gelion, so the dedicated archer unit. I think he's also got some Macemen hiding around in there. I could be incorrect about that. He's definitely got some Randirum. He's got some Spearhost of Gelion as well. I think there's some skirmishers mixed in there, so it's a very skirmish-heavy army, very support-oriented. But we'll see more of them as time goes on. We've also got the House of Ingolfin on the field today, played by Tundra's Fox. He's got Blade Masters of Baird Ithel along with Fierdsmen. 2 units of the Fierdsmen there, along with some Blade Masters. In the center, he's got Marksmen of Baird Ithel, the only dedicated archer unit for the House of Ingolfin, so they are quite light in that regard. 2 units of them. He's also got Bladesmen of Baird Ithel here, 3 units of the Bladesmen. Marines of Vinyamar, he's brought the full complement of 2. Armitar of Baird Ithel. Sons of Hurin, because of course. God, I love this unit. It's just the sexiest thing I think I've ever seen. And then out here, I think he's got some more. He's got some Fursmen of Dorloman, some more Marksmen of Baird Ithel. So this, like, line of Marksmen extends through the tree line and out to the other side. It's very impressive. And then we move on to the Philothrim. So we've got Rangers of Berthambar. This is the light archer unit. Marinos Vearendil. This is also played by KOT Carmundai. He's got Marksmen of Balar, Arankir Lim, and Nobles of Balar. Pretty standard thing you're going to see a lot is Arankir Lim being paired with the Nobles because they're just such a strong center line. More Rangers, got some Spearhosts of Berthambar here as well. A detachment and then a full unit of them. We've got Marines of Eglarest composing the second line, 2 companies. Marines of Berthambar. This is a light infantry unit. They've also got some javelins, but their javelins are not armor-piercing as they are not a dedicated skirmisher. But they are good en masse or for dealing with light units or unshielded foes. And then finally, we've got the Arain Ephedun. So, pretty standard Philothrim army, not something that's terribly different than what we have seen before. And so, moving forward now, my strategy is going to be to stop just short of his line because I want to pick on some of these important elements here. I want to get a piece of Nobles of Balar, and I want to focus them down with as much of my mid-range skirmish power as I possibly can. Because they are a threat, and I will have to deal with them eventually. So, big boom there. These guys probably have armor upgrades, so they're not going to take a huge amount of damage. In fact, I don't think I did any damage to them there at all. Oh, now a couple of kills, but, you know, everyone helps. My Spearhost are there, my Axemen of the Girdle are here. Looks like a cavalry fight is beginning to emerge on my left wing. Scouts of Eglarest kind of got caught out here, and the Warriors of Region are moving in rapidly to support them. And I think I've got a second company of my mounted company here as well, and we're going to just continue to phase these guys out if we can. So I'm going to send my Donathan Mablung along with my 2 units of cavalry. Infantry support with my cav will ensure victory in this, with me having cavalry left over to spare. Maybe my mounted company of Region could pull this off, or they could crush most of this cavalry, but I want to have some left over. I know that there's a lot of enemies on the field today, and if I can save my resources, I absolutely will. Axemen of the Girdle here, tossing out the Spearhost of Berthambar, getting good value there for their throwing axes, and a bit of a staggered advance here from the Philothrim. It's a little slow, so I will have time here to kind of focus fire a little bit. We have managed to do a decent chunk of damage here. My second line's now opening up and focusing down on the Nobles of Balar. Trying to kill as many of them as possible. I don't think we've killed any of the Arankir Lim, but again, I don't really expect to. Disrupting this advance, dealing a decent amount of damage. Managed to kill one of the Arankir Lim. Hooray for us. More and more of those nobles are beginning to fall there to that condensed skirmish fire. Axe Guard have moved forward here, and they are crushing the Spearhost of Berthambar. This is what they are very, very good at indeed. These Axemen of the Girdle, I tried to move them through here to, like, maybe put some fire on the Marines of Eglarest, but they kind of end up getting caught out, and then they'll be bogged down in an extended melee, so that won't really come to too much. Still have a lot of cavalry here in the background, but I was feeling fairly confident about our chances here. And my ally Artorias actually has moved forward as well with his marksman of Nargothrond, and they are super scary, so once they get up on this hill they'll be able to lend me a little bit of skirmish fire support. Out here I've got my Donathan Mablung still kind of far afield, hoping to support my cavalry. Carmondai senses an opportunity here, and he's going to move forward, try and get a piece of this mounted company of Region unit. I'm going to pull back my mounted company towards my Donathan Mablung so that I can then use them to support, and I'm going to throw these guys here into a potential pincer move against the scouts of Eglarest. So they're actually going to end up getting charged from the rear by my mounted company. This mounted company is going to try and chase down these other scouts, as well as the Donathan Mablung. That's going to ultimately be kind of a futile pursuit, and I probably should have gone for a full surround with my cavalry on these scouts of Eglarest. But still, feeling relatively confident until I saw this. I was beating down the Philothrum hard. There's Outriders of Dweilwyn here as well, and some skirmish cavalry, which we didn't see. And they're going to get a beautiful charge into my Axe Guard. It's going to hurt. It's going to do a lot of damage really quickly. And so now I'm definitely in trouble here. I do have some support from my ally, but my Axemen of the Girdle here, I tried to put them into a position where they could get some enfilading fire into the nobles here and try and support our center a little bit more. But unfortunately, they were stopped. And now they're being outflanked here by some Marines and by some Marinos of Earendil. I've still got some Axe Guard nearby who can help out, but I'm reluctant to commit them lest I be surrounded by the House of Fingolfin. So Nargothrond is trying to pick a fight with Tundra Fox's army, and he's got the troops here, I think, to win it. I didn't see any of the pikemen from the House of Fingolfin on the field today, which is an interesting choice when you're facing down the barrel of a Nargothrond army. I would always bring pikes in that matchup, but we don't have them here. Missiles and javelins. Trying to get a piece of these bridge wards. The bridge wards are quite heavily armored, but sustained fire like that will wear them down over time. Defenders here, trying to hold the line against some bladesmen, but they will ultimately lose that fight. Blade Masters of Barad Ithel and a whole bunch of other elements of Tundra Fox's army are surging forward, but this is the important thing here, and this is kind of what I gave Revan, I think, some undue grief over. When I looked at this, it was kind of like Revan had let the entire Assyrian army move away from his position, and then just kind of got bogged down trying to march through the woods and fighting elements of the Fingolfin army. Very much not the case, and you'll see it throughout the battle, and I'll come back to it in a little bit as well. But he is moving basically his entire force over here as reasonably quickly as he's able. Probably should run, I would think, but that's irrelevant. He is moving his entire army over here. Fingolfin is moving to block him because they want to crush me and they want to crush Artorias and then swarm against the host of Angband. Looking back over here, we got more cavalry in behind our lines. So I've focused all my skirmishers on this. I've brought my cavalry in. We're actually going to manage to catch some of the sentries of Gelion here. And they're going to be firing into our troops, but this will go into the front, so we'll get the shield value and the heavy armor. Will hopefully save a decent amount of our troops. But we will manage to get these guys in here, and they're very close to the red line. Now my plan here is to put enough pressure on these guys that we can pursue them all the way to that red line and hopefully catch them and pin them against it and then slaughter them all. At the very least, we will limit their ability to maneuver around us. Over here, my Outriders, or rather my mounted company, going for a frontal confrontation with the Outriders of Dweilwyn. Now, Outriders are spear cavalry, and they're pretty decent against horses, but melee cavalry are just simply better at what they do. So, in terms of pure bonuses here, my guys do have the advantage, and they should be able to cut their way through those Outriders. Not easily, it will be a fight, but nonetheless, it's a match that's in our favor. And while all this is happening, I'm trying to just pepper these guys with as much missile fire as I possibly can. Got my Axemen of the Girdle here. They're actually out of ammunition, but they're also backed up by some Axe Guard. So we're just pushing these guys, and we're pushing them right towards that red line, which is exactly what I want to do. So things are going at least decently for us over there right now. But Scouts of Eglarest in behind our lines. This is the second game I played on stream, and it's the second time that I was being picked on by basically 3 factions all at the same time. It was brutal. And my rangers here rather are going to take a charge from the rear from those scouts, and it's going to hurt. I've managed to stabilize things a little bit on my side, but there's a lot of missile fire now coming in from the marksmen of Beleriand, so I'm actually being cut down here with that ranged fire, and they've chosen a really good target here, my Warriors of Region. And so this wing is in some serious danger. My center is still holding, but again, they are losing, but we're not winning in the places that we need to win in, and that's really the big problem for us here. So I'm moving my spear host over here to try and like lock down this area. I also do have a decent like view, I guess, or line of fire into these Marines of Eglaris, which is what these Rangers were doing before they got shut down by the scouts. But it also does offer some opportunities here to my ally, who is trying to support us as best as he is able. And I think he's going after this exposed area as well. Indeed. Which is why I tried to avoid it when I was in game. That's part of the reason why you've got these really obvious kind of chemical trails for the special ammunitions, because they do some very special things, and you want to be able to know when you're getting shot by them and when your allies are using them too, so you can kind of plan a strategy as you kind of on the fly as things begin to develop. Let's go ahead, kick things into full speed here. The Philothrum are overwhelming us in just sheer numbers, and with support from their allies, it's really not going well for us. We're kind of scattered. We're not really able to concentrate our forces, and the Philothrum are definitely taking advantage of that right now. My mounted company over here doing their best, dealing with the Outriders of Dweilwyn to the utmost of their abilities. I've also got some range support as well. Still got my Rangers over here who are in fairly good health, firing into these lightly armored green elf units, and it is taking its toll. Looks like we'll manage to catch some of these Outriders here, and that's going to really hurt them. There's about 26 of them currently. We should manage to kill more than that. Yes, indeed. You can see them drop there. Almost rout. But they're actually going to escape, and now they're going to be into our back lines. And this is what they need to do. They need to start hammering and anviling my front line, because I'm holding out, and I'm losing, but I am making them pay for it a little bit. So I've managed to outflank them a bit here. I've brought in my Donathan Mablung, who are right here. And they're going to stabilize things. And so these Marines of Eglaris were winning, but now they're going to start losing. And my center is holding out fairly nicely. Rangers of the Girdle getting it thrown into this gap to just try and hold on for as long as possible. That's basically the name of the game here, is just don't die. Got some hidden units coming out of the woodwork here, the Foresters of Berthombar. These are a two-handed spear unit, so they have range, but they don't fight in formation. And my Axe Guard are going to find themselves in a very, very tough position. Spearhosts of the Girdle here being attacked by Rangers. I'm going to throw in some Axe Guard there to even out that fight. Meanwhile, over here, we're going to try and hold off this assault from both the Foresters and from the Marksmen of Balar. Ooh, a nasty charge from the rear by the Philothrum Cavalry is going to make my prospects of victory quite dim indeed. The Scouts are going to take about a quarter, almost half of the remaining numbers there from that charge. But ultimately I will be caught out there by those Philothrum forces, and things are just looking grim. Just generally very grim. So let's go ahead, slow things down, see how Nargothrond is managing to fare against Fingolfin. Bridge Wards doing their job. They are kind of in danger of being surrounded. And there's some AP Spearmen mixed in there as well, in the form of the Wardens of Nargothrond. These Wardens are holding out, but it looks like Thunderous Fox is managing to win in a few different places. Ooh, nasty. Those Bridge Wards there, taking it on the chin from some Javelins. Oh yeah, now they're going to start to drop there. Marksman of Barad Ithel moving in for a surround. Some more missiles pouring into the Bridge Wards of Nargothrond. Herdsmen of Hithlum. I think the Herdsmen are probably what needs to go into the back of these guys. For sure, with that armor piercing, that would be a huge, huge boon. But our ally, Angband, has arrived. And he's duking it out with Thunderous Fox. So slowly but surely, Angband is making their way in. And this is kind of what I was looking in here. I was looking at this big, beefy line. And it kind of looked to me like Korriban was getting himself stuck on some really unimportant elements here, instead of moving to our aid. But actually, if you look, he's holding them down, but he's also moving in with some of his Guardians of the Iron Crown. He's going to catch out the Herdsmen of Hithlum here, alongside the Arquini Mort Magilwa. And now Tundra's Fox is going to be in real big trouble. He was going for a rear charge against the defenders of Talath Dirnid, which are somehow managing to pull out a win here. I'm shocked by that against Bladesmen of Barad Ithel, but I think there's probably more going on here. Yeah, the Sartor Findorado are overlapping them. I'm getting some routing here. So the Sartor Findorado managed to rout some of the Blade Masters, a lot of the Blade Masters, 2 units of them, including some Herdsmen. So a lot of routing taking place here on Tundra's Fox's end. And now, with the addition of Angband, the surround is going down, and the host of Hithlum is pretty well on the verge of collapse here. Meanwhile, over in the center, take a look at this. Nargothrond Marksman trying to deal with the Outriders of Dwylwyn. I'm basically out of cavalry and mobile elements in my army, and at the same time, all of these green elves have come to their aid. So Urfin and Tower putting fire into the rear of my forces, and of Artorias' as well. And we're in trouble. We're in really deep trouble here. Scouts of Gelion, 3 units of them, basically surrounded this entire wing. And there goes Tundra's Fox's general, so that looks like the army of Fidgulfin is not going to be long for this world. Spearhost of Gelion are here as well, looking for a decent target. Herdsmen of Dor Loman being brought back to try and shore things up. Tundra's Fox does still have a decently strong presence here. Marines of Vinyamar getting a nice charge against the rear of the Wardens of Nargothrond. Oh, well, they didn't actually charge there, but they'll get a surround off. Bridge Wards of Nargothrond fully surrounded, but there's not really enough here. They're kind of just like in a big compact block. This is great for getting picked on by missiles, but not against infantry like this. Some herdsmen in there would definitely not go awry, as the armor piercing is huge. But Angband has arrived, and Tundra's Fox is going to struggle, I think, to hold on here. The Green Elves are going to move some of their Spear Host to support, but against the full might of the Angband army, I just don't know if they have it in them. There's Urfin and Tower here, peppering down what remains of my forces. We actually started to win a little bit here. In the center, we're still managing to hold on. And you really got to give it to Doriath as a faction. We were in dire straits the whole time. We were on the back foot this entire game, whereas we intended to be aggressive, and I built my army around that. We were still able to kind of hold on and hold the line, even though we are ultimately fighting a losing battle. Over here, speaking of losing battles, our troops are surrounded, but they're holding out, and they've managed to deal a fair amount of casualties to those foresters of Perthombar. And the Marksmen of Balar are really the scary piece of this army. I think we've managed to kill off, well, not too many of them. Maybe about 4 or 5 of them. They're pretty strong. Green Elves rapidly moving to reinforce. Scouts of Gelion getting themselves into a big ugly firing line. They should probably focus down some of these pikes here. I think that's like massed bow fire. It will definitely shred a unit of Nargothrond pikes even with their 11 armor. Oh, Fidgulfin's doing their best. I think they're going to start to break here. Angband has come in force. And his Marines have now broken. Philothron are here. Assyrian is setting up like a second line. But I think the big problem here is that they weren't able to kill me off fast enough. I didn't see a lot of like hammer and anvil strikes going in with the lancers and such. We actually managed to, and this is probably the biggest thing that we managed to accomplish this game, is that we managed to bleed their cavalry a lot. We caught a lot of the sentries of Gelion. We drove them back at various points here, and we fought with them in the woods. Some of the, I think there's some of my units in here, but Artorias actually managed to contribute to this as well, cutting down his Melkon's cavalry and things like that. We just managed to bleed them, but ultimately it's not going to matter too much, at least for myself and for Artorias, as most of our forces will fall in the attempt, trying to fight these 3 armies at once. But still, that was the one thing that I think we did really well, is like dealt with his cavalry. Ooh, one sec, guys. Sorry about that, my mouse was having an issue. And now the Green Elves preparing themselves for a final stand against Angband. I think, hopefully they didn't leave their spear host of Beleriand to just die horribly.
Our men have slain the enemy general. Without him, our general lies slain upon the battlefield.
A couple of generals just went down there in rapid succession, so my general is dead. And now Artorias, what remains of his army, just a decent amount of pikes and some wardens, is forming up alongside Korriban. And they're going to take on the Green Elves, who are pretty well the biggest force left on the field. Nice charge there from the Spear Host into the Ironshod Legionnaires. And honestly, even though they're spear units, they could probably beat down the Ironshod Legionnaires. This seems like a decent place to establish a front line. I'm just wondering where the Spear Host of Beleriand are. Oh, I see, they're over here. Scouts focus firing down the Guardians of the Iron Crown as they attempt to outflank, which probably isn't the greatest use. You're better to pin them down with some kind of infantry, as they can get quite high with their armor values, double that of the Scouts. Double that of the Scouts' missile damage, I should say. And a big flanking movement coming in here from Angband. Guardians of the Iron Crown, alongside the Ironshod Ravagers. Honestly, this is a better target for those Scouts. The Scouts would probably kill off half of this unit in 2 or 3 volleys. Spearhouse fighting from the frontier against the Reavers. That is going to go all their way. Unfortunately, got some routing units here crashing through their lines. Spearhost of Rath L'Oreal holding out against the Angband assault. More and more troops are now forcing their way in. These Spearhosts here are about to get attacked from the rear by some Wardens of Nargothrond. They're also being pressed in by Spearguard of the Iron Crown. And Angband is now engaging what remains of the Philothrum, and this is actually really important, is that the Angband army, along with Artorias, have managed to keep the remaining Red Team forces from rallying together. So now, instead of fighting as one big cohesive force, with the Philothrum acting as kind of a reserve to the Assyrian units, they're fighting 2 separate battles. So Assyrian is fighting over here against Angband, and the Philothrum are also having to fight against Angband and Artorias, but they're not able to support each other. Got some Randirim here. Ooh. Rear shots. That's gonna hurt. Those body-piercing missiles, like, look at the path of destruction that they can cause. And they're being pinned in by Urfin and Tower as well. That's a scary thing. And this is where it starts to go a little bit pear-shaped. So Angband had the numbers remaining to just overrun the entire Assyrian line. And it was a little bit bunched up. Melkon's, I think, is a little bit newer. So haven't quite got to the point where it's like 3 or 4 ranks deep. It's still, you're still seeing units deployed like 7 or 8 ranks deep. Which means that they can't cover as much ground, and so they get outflanked like this. And that has a lot of consequences for how your units perform, and how willing they are to stand and fight for extended periods. So I think if he was able to cover some more ground here, he might have been able to give his scouts some more time to fire. But as it is, he's been overrun, and the scouts of Beleriand are just getting smashed to bits by heavily armored orc infantry. And as we all know from the story and from previous matches, the Green Elves do not do well in this kind of situation. Forced into close quarters combat against heavily armored forces, and not having time to allow their skirmishers to really do their job, this is not usually going to go the way of Assyrian. Randirim are still active, still doing their thing. The Philothrum have tried to come to the aid of their allies. They managed to rout off a company of Iron Crown Guardians. But these Rangers are actually going to charge into the rear of the Legionnaires. The Philothrum are making a final stand here. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Still some reinforcements yet to come. Carmondai has managed to deal with what remains of my Doriath army on my left wing. So now he's filtering in some reinforcements. Let's go ahead and kick it into full speed here. These Ironshod Legionnaires, they're holding out well. The Rangers of Pathombar are not powerful units in close quarters. And now the rest of the Angband army, along with Artorias, is going to smash into them as they sweep away what remains of the Green Elves. It's going to leave the Philothrum dangerously exposed. Well, the Scouts of Beleriand doing their best, but this is not a winning fight at all. Now there's pikes in there. They're going to lower their spears and push forward. Well, that's going to be all she wrote for the Scouts. And there goes the Philothrum General Círdan, cut down amidst his retinue, who did their best to save him, I'm sure. But ultimately, he was killed, and the Philothrum are now being overwhelmed. Lots of nobles of Balar here breaking. The Ronkir Lim are even being spooked, and it's hard to rout the Philothrum like this, but this is the kind of situations where they can begin to crumble. Heavily outnumbered. Their general just died, so they suffered the shock from that. That's basically game over here. I'm going to look at the percentages there. It's not super close, but it was still a very intense match. And I was a little bit salty because it's the second game that I got like triple teamed. But ultimately, I think my allies did really well. The strategy of the red team was solid, and it almost worked. It was so close, but they just weren't able to deal with my army. And if they had kind of been more aggressive and pushed my back lines, I wouldn't have been able to stop them, because my army was like scattered and fighting multiple different engagements all at once. My reserves were gone. I just didn't have the resources left to fight on another front and try and defend my back line. So if they had hammered and anviled me hard with their remaining cavalry, I think that would have been... It could have been a different game. They would have been able to kind of reform in good order against Angband and the remaining Nargothrond forces. And with Osirian playing support and the Philothrum still doing healthy and able to link up with what remains of the host of Hithlum, then this could have been so much different. Green Elves here rallying a little bit. One final charge here into these units as the Scouts of Beleriand support them from above. Well, I think those units will probably rout almost immediately. Yep. I'm going to get charged down by those Ravagers who are going to hit those Scouts really hard. That's going to rout them off. Randirum here breaking almost immediately. The Erfin and Tower are locked morale, so they'll fight forever. But they don't have the numbers or the support to cut their way through these heavily armored Nargothrond units. It's just not going to happen for them.
Our men have fought long and are becoming tired.
More defenders pushing in. Well, that's basically it for this battle. But it was a bloody, bloody struggle. Like, my army is gone. Artorias, I think, had maybe a few hundred troops remaining. Most of them were his pikemen. But I had maybe 40 men left at the end of this battle. Not even. Probably more like 20. Bulldogs of Angband. Very, very healthy. They haven't even taken a single casualty this game. Angband was late to the party just because of how quick the Green Elves were and how quickly they were able to shift. And it was a great strategy. That's what really gets me, is that it was a good strategy, but there was just that failing where they weren't able to use their cavalry advantage to crush my army. If they had, then I would have just melted, and that would have been it, right? They would have been able to crush me quickly, and then it would be a 2v3. And Artorias would have been very, very compromised. His entire left wing would have been extremely exposed. His marksmen would have been killed early on, which are a huge part of the killing power of that army. Whereas his marksmen managed to survive many cavalry attacks. They even pushed back here into the woods, where they managed to finish off some cavalry with the help of some of my infantry. Well, that's going to be it. Hopefully we get an end screen this time. So look at some of the kills there. I managed to get a decent amount of kills. I had to fight against some pretty crazy odds, but Artorias supported me well, and of course Revan ended up coming in and saving the day. So really great job to both of them. Melkon did his best. The entire other team did well. They just couldn't stop the advance of Angband because they weren't able to to kill off my army and to weaken Artorias to the point where it was basically a 2v3. So, yeah. I think Tundra's Fox did kind of what he needed to do. He was delaying as best as he was able to. I didn't see any of the pikes. I might have just forgotten of them. I could have gone through them in the introduction and, like, forgot that they existed, but I didn't see them in this battle. So interesting choice there not to bring the Adane pikes. I think that it would have been a different engagement. I don't think Artorias would have been able to be as strong in that fight with his pikes as he was if there were some Adane pikemen to kind of contest that with them. So I think that was maybe a bit of a compositional error. Karmandai did really well. He basically did all the things that he was supposed to do. He held out. He pressured my army. He pressured my back lines. We saw him get some decent recharges there that kind of like altered the scape of engagements where I was winning, which were very few and far between. So he kept the pressure on me real hard. I think probably the biggest mistake here was that Melkon wasn't able to use his cavalry against my back line. He could have like basically led me on a merry chase with his lancers and then used his archers to shoot into the rear of my forces. Most of my guys are pretty lightly armored. They're like medium armor, and then the 8 armor on my heavy infantry is not spectacular against 6 missile damage. And if I decided I wanted to go after his scouts, then I would have had to, break off my pursuit of the Outriders, and the Outriders would have been kind of free to do their thing. So the resources were there. I just don't think that they were used to maximum effectiveness, and that was probably what contributed to this defeat here at the end. So it was like 65 to like 88 or something like that. So it wasn't a super close game, but I think it's still really fun to watch. And there were some awesome tactics and plays on display. So in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I'll show you some of the casualties here because I actually remembered this time. Axe Guard doing really well. Most of them did pretty well. Again, you can expect the Axe Guard to do well if you pick their engagements properly. Donathan Mablung got some good kills there. Even my Axemen of the Girdle, the light supporting units, did well. But yeah, so that's the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And there'll be some other stuff coming up next. Not too sure. I'm kind of playing it by ear. Again, as I mentioned at the end of my last video, I will be going on vacation for about 5 to 6 days. I'm going to be going surfing. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it. But I do want to get some videos out to you guys before I leave. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.